What's up, Internet? Welcome to Once Over. I'm Kaylee, and with me today I have Jarrod and Steven from Puppet Masters Castle Freaks, and today we're going to be giving the once over to Attack of the 50-Foot Woman.
Now you pulled a boner tonight and you know it.
There will be spoilers.
Give it a good once over.
Giving us the once over. Giving him the once over.
Give me a once over.
Down to give us the once over.
For a routine once over.
Once over.
Oh, just once over lightly.
Jarrod and Steven, I'm so excited that you guys are here joining me to talk about Attack of the 50-Foot Woman from 1958, which we are, of course, talking about because you and I previously discussed on your channel Attack of the 50-Foot Cam Girl and Giantess Battle Attack. Is that what the other one was called?
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
That's what it was. You got it.
Yep.
Oh, the craziness that was. That was, why did we do that again?
In many ways,
Natural
Attack of the
progression.
50-Foot Woman is a remake of Attack of the 50-Foot Cam Girl.
Of course.
Really, if you look at them closely, they bear a lot of similarities.
They really do. I would argue that they also have many, many differences, and we will get into some of those. But if you guys have not checked out our review of Attack of the 50-Foot Cam Girl and Giantess Battle Attack, I will link all of that down below. Absolutely go over and check out Puppet Masters Castle Freaks. Amazing, amazing podcast talking about super duper fun stuff. I think you guys are still not on the Ghoulies 4 train. Am I correct about that?
I think a Ghoulies 4 is going to happen at some point, right?
We're being beaten into submission by diehard Ghoulies fans who are like, "We're going to give up on you. We're going to drop the show if you don't do Ghoulies 4." I know it's not, canon. People have actually. It's funny. We've only done Ghoulies 1 and 2 on the show so far. I'm pretty familiar with Ghoulies 3. But I haven't watched it in a while. But it's like people have been really talking about how excited they are for us to hit 3 and 4. And we mentioned early on, we're like, we're not going to probably do 4 because it's not, canon. And people are like, oh, you're doing 4.
Oh, you're doing 4, buddy. You're doing 4.
I got to tell you, I'm on the edge of my seat for it. So that's saying something. You got a whole crowd of people.
I'm curious because we haven't been fans really of the first 2 Ghoulie movies. So I think people are thinking that by the time they go to college, like that'll turn us. That's going to be what turns the tide for us, is seeing them go to class and edit their curricula, things like that. But I don't know. I'm excited to do it though. I do want to finish it out. Part of me is just a completionist, and part of me is just like, yep. I want to
see these Ghoulies find themselves.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Be along for that journey. I like Ghoulies too. I really don't care that much for the first one. I remember when I was a kid, the cover art, I was obviously drawn to it because everyone was. But I was like, when I watched it, I remember being really disappointed that they weren't all fish or toilet ghoulie. Like I was like, as much as I love John Carl Buechler and all of his like creature designs, I kind of wanted the ghoulies to all be uniform.
Yeah.
And then I think, Ghoulies 2, I think gives you, in my opinion, so much more the Ghoulies movie that you want.
I could totally see that.
That's how I feel about that.
But
Also, speaking of the cover art, I think that the cover art from Attack of the 50-Foot Woman is probably one of the most iconic posters that has ever existed. And also talk about something that disappoints you within the movie, because the cover art, of course, is this beautiful giant 50-foot woman over a highway, which is a scene that we never get to see. And this is a movie, I believe that neither of you had seen this before coming into this review. Is that correct?
that is correct. First time watch for me. Yeah.
That is incorrect for me.
Oh, okay. You got this one.
Yeah, I've seen this movie before. It had been a really, really long time, but when we talk a little bit more about our kind of movie origin stories and our experience with cheap sci-fi exploitation movies like this, these were the kind of movies that I was really readily consuming a lot of this stuff in the early 90s, thanks to Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah.
So it's like, and this one is sort of the patient zero in a lot of ways of what would come to be known as like the so bad it's good campy movie. I mean, you have your Plan 9s and Bride of the Monster and stuff from that time, but this one I feel like is special because if for no other reason, it is a female protagonist who is plagued with giantism in this one.
It absolutely is. And, cheesy sci-fi B movie at its surface, it is, but I think that there are quite a few underlying themes in this movie. We get things that are reflective of anxieties and the culture of the 1950s America. It dives into themes of repressed anger. We get betrayal, the evils of money, and the fear of female sexuality as a 50-foot monstrous woman is a stand-in for basically the threatening idea of gender roles changing during the Cold War. So there's really quite a bit to this movie, which is completely different than Attack of the 50-Foot Cam Girl, because that, I think we all just agreed, was a comedy at best, if you could even call it that.
Generously, yeah. If we meet it more than halfway, it is a comedy, yes. I didn't really know what to expect with this movie, because I don't even think of it as being in like the so bad it's good canon anymore. It's sort of just been canonized, and I think so much of it is just because of that poster, because that thing is just so incredible and so striking and such a great representation of this era of B movies. But like watching the movie, I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is deeply silly. But I agree with you that they were kind of like hitting on a lot of things. I wonder how intentional some of these themes that they're hitting on were. It kind of feels like a little bit of a saying the quiet part out loud movie, because it's a movie about men being so anxious about women and like not understanding how they think and how they feel, and they're worried about their roles being taken over. And for women, it's also like, yes, it's about how you're not paying attention to me. It's how you're not listening to me. It's how you're gaslighting me. It's how you are physically becoming less empowered than me because I'm finding my own strength.
I mean, that could be the tagline for this movie: is "Town gaslights woman, woman seeks revenge."
Yes, yes, absolutely.
It absolutely could. I would describe this one as a wealthy woman gets zapped by aliens and then grows into a skyscraper, and then uses her new height to her advantage to finally confront her cheating husband, proving once and for all that hell hath no fury like a giant woman scorned, and she can toss cars around if she wants to, for Christ's sake.
Sure,
she can do literally whatever she wants to do. She finally has gotten some power.
She can turn her husband into a floppy baby doll.
I can't breathe!
Like magically, and lift him up into the air. Like, amazing.
Adorable.
They just did not even try with that one. It was full on a baby doll.
That's one of my
head.
favorite effects in any movie, is the hand falling down with the floppy baby doll.
It is just a full on baby doll, and he's just like screeching. And then that gigantic plaster hand that they're just like keeping in the hospital room.
Hurry to that marquee, Gussie!
Oh, it's so silly, but like,
didn't they use that giant plaster hand in like a Jackass sketch? Where it was
basically, yeah, where they're like, it's like spring loaded when they're walking past. Kind of projecting back to 1950s movie executive brain for this, but like you have to imagine much of the reason that this movie's getting made is because of that poster, because you have like this va-va-voom pinup style girl in scantily clad, and like, so the fact that she's bigger just means her clothes get smaller, boys, come on, and they were kind of building the movie off of that sort of steam. And then I think they stumbled onto something a lot darker and a lot more like weirdly incisive than they were trying to.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that there's a couple of things that completely agree with your point. First of all, the director was Nathan Hertz, but of course that was not his real name. His real name was Nathan Jarrod. And he was so embarrassed by this project and thought that it was going to be such a huge flop that he didn't want to use his real name as the director on it. So Nathan Hertz for this film. And I think that the title of this film really is indicative of the fact that it had nothing to do with the movie. The movie is called Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, which indicates that the 50-foot woman is evil. She's attacking. But I think that as we go through this film, we might disagree with the idea that she's just inherently evil and bad. I don't know that I think that she's the bad guy of this movie.
If
No,
I may,
she's not at all. Yeah.
This is something we encountered in a really fun movie that we covered on our show called Assault of the Killer Bimbos, which is basically a late 80s Empire Pictures prototype for Thelma and Louise. And it's these go-go dancer girls run away from like the law and a mobster, and they kind of kidnap a waitress along the way, and it's their friendly female road trip buddy comedy. Wacky stuff happens in it. They're called bimbos by people in the movie,
Right.
But they don't really do anything that would make you think that they should be called bimbos. And at no point do they attack anyone. It's literally just they're like trying to survive and stay on the right side of the law and outrun people. And I always thought like it just makes something so much more captivating when you throw attack in the title.
I mean,
really
for that
does.
movie, like that title was like, I think it was meant to be like satirical, and that just didn't really come across through the marketing. You know,
Yeah, there
I
was
think if
zero assaulting.
Exactly. If you would like splash that title like over like a tabloid font or something, or just put it in air quotes or something like that, like it would get the point of the movie across a little better. That's how they're being perceived, as like, oh, you know, it's the attack of the killer bimbo. Yeah, I don't know. That movie rules. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, you guys have already sold me on it. I definitely am going to watch
you should
that, like,
definitely
immediately.
watch it. It's definitely worth watching. And Steve and I both have the soundtrack album to it on vinyl.
We sure do. We sure
That's
do.
amazing. Was it? Did Mondo make that? I have to assume.
No,
Or is
it's
it-
like
Oh.
it's just an original, like a record that was pressed in 1988.
It was a great Christmas gift from Jarrod. Yeah, it was awesome.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
Hmm.
Before we get into the movie itself, I just want to talk a little bit about the remakes, about what's kind of been going on with this movie, because obviously we have things like Attack of the 50-Foot Cam Girl, which is a sort of homage to this original 1958 film. But in addition to that, there was a 1993 made-for-TV remake starring Daryl Hannah and directed by Christopher Guest. Which is, it's reasonable, it's fine, but it was a low budget remake of this, as this was a low budget movie.
Mhm.
In addition to that, Tim Burton has been tied to make yet another remake, although he has also said that he has no films in the works right now, so it's a little bit unclear if that's actually happening or not. When we were talking over on your guys' channel, I was not so happy about the idea of Tim Burton doing this one.
I was happy about the idea of Gillian Flynn writing it. That's the
Yes.
last I heard. So the author of
Yes.
Gone Girl is
Yeah.
apparently writing the script. I haven't heard anything about that either. But this is a movie that a lot of like kind of weirdo cult directors have been trying to remake for a long time. Like Jim Wynorski was having a crack at it at one point. There was a TV show I think in the works that at a certain point where she was going to be like a Wonder Woman style, like it can grow and shrink or whatever, and like can control it.
Well, then that just made me think of the Lily Tomlin movie too, right? The
Oh yeah,
Incredible Shrinking Woman.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is basically Ant-Man. When are they adding Lily Tomlin to the MCU? I'm asking that right now. Needs to
That's a
happen.
great question.
It's a great question. But like Tim Burton, yeah. So like he has the clout again after Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice was such a huge hit. Like he can kind of get anything he wants made, and so this has been an axe he's been grinding for a long time. I wonder if this is like the kind of movie that they really loved growing up, or if they were just kind of like triggered by it in a specific way, or like just just the poster art, the iconography of it, and the idea of it. Because this title and this whole look, this really encapsulates this cool vibe of horror and sci-fi in the 50s, right? Of just like, we're afraid of nuclear radiation and we're afraid of Soviet invaders, right? So all of our movies are about giant monster things, or they're about invaders from outer space, you know? And this one is throwing in that sexual component as well, where we are afraid of the changing roles of men and women in the household. And like, we're afraid of this of being overtaken and turned into baby dolls and thrown away.
Yes. Yeah. That would be the worst ever demise, probably.
It'd be a great Mortal Kombat fatality, though. Yeah.
Harry, get over here.
Get over here.
All right, well, let's
Trying to
talk a
kill my
little
wife.
bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the main characters of this one. So the first main character that we have, of course, is Nancy Archer. She is an extremely rich lady who is married to a philandering Harry Archer.
Now you listen to me, Harry. I won't stand for any more of your two-timing.
And she becomes the titular 50-foot woman. And she definitely gets a bad rap. She's like accused of drinking. She's constantly, everybody's saying she needs to get committed all the time. But to me, she very much reads as a tragic figure, like a King Kong sort of figure, which we definitely get with the hand reaching down to grab the small human. We get a lot of those references.
It's very much like a gilded cage situation for her, where she's like extremely wealthy, but like her husband's a shit, and everybody in town kind of like resents her for her wealth and her beauty. And Yeah, it really is, like Jarrod was saying, just like a collective like gaslighting effort, because they know like Harry's just like bribing everybody around town to keep being a shithead, and everybody's just on board with it.
Couldn't find me tonight, Charlie.
The way that the town treats this woman, like the way the police treat her, where they're like, it's just it's just her, the town drunk.
You're all wrong.
And you're drunk, Nancy. Why don't you try to sleep it off?
And then it's like, she's like, no, I promise I'm not drunk. And they're like, yeah, whatever, Rummy, get out of here. Go drive yourself home.
I don't believe you. Just be calm. Now come on and sit down in the car.
And it's like, she's getting in the car and it's like, she's hysterical. It's like, she's just drunk. Let her drive home.
Yeah,
Like
come on.
She's
She's just pregnant.
owns
Let her
the
have
town.
a cigarette. Yeah.
She basically owns the town. I mean, there are definitely some references to the fact that her wealth is bringing a lot to this tiny little podunk sort of town.
Gigolo, that's what you are. You're a miserable parasite. You're just after my money.
I learned something very interesting about Allison Hayes, who plays Nancy.
Yeah.
So she famously died of lead poisoning due to supplements that she was taking. She was taking like calcium pills for health. But before she died, that was like her famous, like horrible demise. I'm saying that as if I'm happy about it. I'm not happy about that. That's very tragic. She was actually a huge advocate before she passed, that the FDA start monitoring and regulating nutritional supplements, which they had not ever done before. And she ended up being a huge reason as to why changes were eventually made, and the FDA did start monitoring that stuff. So I think that's an incredible, wonderful legacy that she had, in addition to being the 50-foot woman.
Yeah, that's amazing. I really didn't know much about her outside of I'm actually surprised that the woman on the poster is actually her in the movie, because a lot of the times those did not necessarily align. It was we talk a lot about Charles Band on our show, and like that's the Charles Band model of like poster first and build it from there. That absolutely comes from this era. But no, that's actually her, and I think she's really great in this movie. And Harry is just such a reprehensible shit from like moment one to the very end. It makes it very satisfying when he gets squished, and I don't think the movie's ever sympathizing with him or on his side or anything, but oh man, what a dickhead.
I don't know if it has anything to do with the style of the time, which was wearing your pants really high and kind of slicking your hair back. It was not wearing an onion on your belt,
which was the style at the time,
as some people might assume.
I was rushing to the onion on the belt joke. Yeah, I was trying to find it.
But it's always really funny to me when you have this situation, and I think maybe it's just telling about the gender roles at the time and the way that women in relationships were valued. But you have, like, in this movie, you have Allison Hayes, who's like very conventionally attractive with like a really, great body and all that stuff. And she like cannot get over and does not think she can do better than this guy who basically looks like Carl Malden.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always the case. It's always the case. It's always like this absolutely beautiful knockout woman who is pining over this guy who could kind of take her or leave her. And he's always like some schlub. And that's like exactly how this is too. And it's like, it's sad that the rest of the town sort of like views them as equals as well, because I'm watching the movie and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that Nancy could do better than Harry.
Yeah,
I think not only could she do better than him, but I think that the town views him as better than her. I think everybody sees her as the town drunk. He has really convinced everybody she's completely insane. She's going to continue getting committed. She's going to be just awful. And most of his motive for doing that is because he wants her riches. When she's not around, when the cat's away, the mice will play. And so he's like, the more she gets committed, the more I ruin her life to get her drunk, to get her away, the more fun I can have with all these floozies, which leads us to his floozy du jour, which of course is Honey, played by Yvette Vickers.
Oh, Honey rules this movie.
I almost gave you up, baby.
Yeah, Honey's incredible. What a crazy performance. It's so much fun.
She is super fun. She is money hungry to all hell. All she wants is Harry to herself and to have all of his money.
You know, the trouble with us is we've both got the same disease. Money.
I wish that this movie had the budget or the courage to pull a giantess battle attack and have Honey grow to the same proportions at the end of the movie so that they could have the ultimate like slap down cat fight. That would have been the only thing that makes this movie trashier.
You know, and that really, now that I think about it, I feel even more like I respect Attack of the 50-Foot Cam Girl even more. You really could do that because Honey is such a money-hungry character. She would want to fight to the death for this.
Yes, but think about this. This is the 1950s. 2 giant women? That's Armageddon.
That's Armageddon. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, they can't put them together in the same room.
Speaking of rooms, when they were when she first grows and they're standing in the room with just the giant hand, I got something just tickled me where I was like, does this place not have a roof?
Right.
How is she laying in her normal size room?
I'll get Dr. Cushing.
Or building where her hand is going through the doorway. And she's just laying with a limb going through the entrance to each different room.
Right. Yeah.
She can stand up.
Not only that, but houses in the 1950s had relatively small rooms. It's not like there's an open floor plan up there where she can like kind of sprawl out. She is cramped up in some little teeny tiny room. That would have been a very funny visual that I would have enjoyed seeing.
But also, I think building dimensions back then were different because we're told she's a 50-foot woman and she's as tall as a 2-story building. So they have 25-foot ceilings.
Wow. Pretty good. Pretty good. They probably had to work a whole summer to afford that.
Dang it all. Back to Yvette Vickers for one moment, because we talked about the absolutely tragic demise of Allison Hayes, and Yvette Vickers unfortunately also had a very tragic demise. She, in her later years of life, became a recluse, an entire recluse, would not talk to anybody, and as a result of that, her mummified remains were found in her house in April of 2011, and it was thought that she had been dead for over a year.
Oh my God.
That's wild.
Horrible.
I was like, I always read about all the actors. And so the first 2 actors that I read about were those 2. And I was like, oh my God, did everybody from this movie have crazy deaths? But it was just those 2.
Yeah.
All the men had totally normal deaths.
Yeah. Oh, that's really
garbage.
strange.
Garbage.
I mean, that sort of, fits right in with the themes of the time in the movie.
It really does. So in addition to those 3 main characters, we also get to see tons of things like TV news reporters. We get to see the doctors and the scientists, and we get to see the cops, and we get to see how all of those different entities interact with each other. And that is one of the sci-fi tropes that I absolutely love. In particular, one of the things that I love within kaiju films, which this definitely has sort of the feel of. Did you guys enjoy being able to see the TV news reports, the doctors and the scientists? Give me kind of some thoughts about that.
That TV news report was one of the funniest moments. It's like the newscaster is like, oh, and that rich bitch, Miss Archer, she thinks she saw a flying saucer, that dumb idiot. She's probably watching this right now. And if you're watching this, yeah, I'm talking to you, you idiot.
Mrs. Archer has not only been seeing a sociable satellite, but it's inhabited as well. A 30-foot giant.
P.S. You smell.
It's really funny. I coincidentally last night I went to Nighthawk Cinema, which is like an Alamo Drafthouse style movie theater in Brooklyn, because they did a screening of The Howling, and
nice.
There's really funny little comparisons with the same thing. It's like a lot to do with like gaslighting a woman about a past trauma, and like it also has to do with news and the news anchors and how they talk to people and stuff. And I was like, watching the 2 of them really close together, I was like, it was an aesthetic that I was quite enjoying.
I mean, that's Landis, right? Or is that
no? That's Joe Dante.
That's Dante. Excuse me. Yeah, Landis is American Werewolf, but Dante and Landis both would have been guys who were really influenced by this movie. This is when they would have been like going to the movies a lot. So I don't think that's a coincidence. I'm willing to bet that like a lot of that is a direct pull.
Were there people in this movie that were killed by helicopter blades?
I didn't notice that one.
I'm sorry, you can edit that out if you want, Kaylee.
I'm going to have to go. No, that's not even accurate. I'm not going to edit that out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through this movie and like edit in a little helicopter.
Oh my God. Oh, horrible.
Get ready to send your royalties to the estate of Vic Morrow.
Yeah.
Oh boy. It's fine. Everything's fine.
But I mean, you brought up the kaiju thing, and I think the big difference that this movie has over a kaiju thing is that there is kind of like an inherently fetishistic kind of approach to this material. I think, and I don't even know if the filmmakers are aware actively that that's what they're doing, but like this is a very physical representation of like a dominant female. Conceptualize it like when she's physically bigger and stronger than you, and there's like clearly some stuff being kind of worked out here, whether actively or passively. But
if the filmmakers didn't know it, the poster artist knew it.
definitely, yeah,
Knew something that was doing it for someone.
Yeah.
Well, you guys taught me last time we were talking about macrophilia. You taught me, I think, Jarrod, you had just discovered that term, if I remember.
No, that was Steve.
That was Steve.
Do not put this on me.
Listen,
Look,
somebody's got to
put it on
take credit for it.
IMDb trivia. Yeah, IMDb trivia for Attack of the 50-Foot Cam Girl is what
Check
taught me
this guy's
macrophilia.
web browser search history.
Yes. But I will say that this felt I agree that there is potentially the fetishism related to woman dominance, but I don't think that she gets overtly sexualized in this film. Really, it is all about her taking control over something that she hasn't had control over ever before.
Yeah, exactly. It was much more kind of baked into the idea of it. I'm almost willing to bet like that if we do get that inevitable remake, that's going to be much more like text and less subtext. I think it's going to be much more about her reclaiming her power, and that I think we will get that big slapdown fight at the end of the movie. Like I think that's all going to happen for sure.
I think you're right. I think you're totally right about the slapdown fight between the two ladies. Which I don't know if I like the idea of two women fighting over a man in a movie that is supposed to be about empowerment, but I think it's funny, and I really want to see it. Yeah,
it is funny. Yeah, yeah. I mean, especially if they're like landing on him or something, you know? Yeah, like.
All right, let's talk about how she becomes this giant 50-foot woman, allegedly 50-foot woman. So the aliens come down. The first news report that we get to see here is all about how a ship has been reported all over the world, and so the ship must be moving extremely, extremely fast. And the first couple of opening scenes that we get to see are Nancy driving in a car, and we get to see a giant ball. It's like a big old. It reminded me of. Did you guys ever see the TV show from the '60s, The Prisoner, with Patrick McGowan?
Absolutely, I watched it.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Bubble Rover. That was very much the feeling that I got. And they keep calling it a satellite.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it's a satellite. There were large antennae sticking out of the sides of it, apparently, which I think maybe were just the wires that they forgot to edit out. But
yeah, that was kind
I'm
of.
going to charitably say, yeah, those were intentional.
I liked the idea of the alien subplot. Again, we need some way for her to get radioactive or whatever the heck happens to her.
Yeah,
we need her to become radioactive in whatever way that this is happening. However, I will say I think that the design of this bubble could have been maybe a little bit better.
Yeah, it's just kind of a big floppy circle, really, you know.
Yeah, and watching it in 2025 in probably the highest definition it's ever been in. I mean, there are some very prominent strings pulling that bubble towards the screen.
Yeah.
But which is also, again, just part of its charm. Like, you know, I mentioned before being a big fan of these 50s sci-fi movies because of Mystery Science Theater. You know, when I first discovered Mystery Science Theater and Bride of the Monster is one of the episodes, and my mom's cousin was a big like schlock cinema fan, and he was like, you should watch some of the other Ed Wood movies. And I was like, okay, that sounds cool. And I got an Ed Wood biography and I read it. And then right as I was finishing reading it, they announced that the Ed Wood movie was in production. And so that was a really fortuitous time period. And, you know, all of those things, it's like, what is Plan 9 if you can't see the strings? Like, what is Plan 9 if they're not knocking tombstones over and they're not, you know, like that's the charm of a lot of this stuff. Like I can go back and watch 50s monster movies all the time because the scrappy DIY nature of how they were made is really there on screen. And I just, you know, I don't know. It's an aesthetic that I love, and I feel like we're probably maybe the tail end of that. Like this was a movie that came out when my parents were young, like
Mhm.
you know, 22 or 23 years before I was born. I'm kind of in that last bastion of like, I can appreciate this thing my parents liked. I don't know how much love someone born in, 2005, who's 20 years old now, has for 1950s sci-fi movies. But I do feel like it's sometimes you hold on to a little bit of like the previous generation's culture as well. It's like watching the Brady Bunch and shit like that too. I don't know. I just love this aesthetic, and so I was like,
Yeah.
more strings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think this is an era before when like genre fiction became super like ironic or intentionally transgressive, so it does feel, it feels a little cheesy in that way, but it's also very earnest and it's very sincere in a way that we kind of lose. So it's kind of nice as like a little bit of that. Like, that being said, I did come around in the 80s and 90s, and like, I do have a little bit of that ironic sensibility, so it's hard for me to kind of like meet this exactly on the ground it needs to be met at to appreciate it. But like, I think they stumbled on some cool stuff here, and there's a lot of like iconic moments too. And I do love a good movie that's like an hour 2 minutes flat,
I do too. Especially, again, the pacing of this is great. It feels almost like it's a little bit longer than an hour in a good way for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I enjoyed the pacing very much. And we really do get quite a bit of information, because not only do we get to see this giant bubble spaceship satellite thing, but in addition to that, we get introduced to an alien relatively early on. We just see his hand at first. Nancy refers to him as a 30-foot giant. Everybody thinks she's just entirely delusional since she's a drunk.
You think I'm drunk, don't you? All of you! I'm not drunk! I'm not!
So everybody just keeps being like, oh, listen to the crazy lady talking. She doesn't know what she's saying. She's just going to get committed really soon.
When Dr. Cushing hears about it, he'll probably have her committed right away.
Which I think is just a really interesting way to kind of, again, look at those sorts of themes. Eventually, Nancy tries to convince Harry to go out and actually see this thing. And Harry's response to that is to grab a gun, and he goes, we're going hunting. And it's like, how are you going to hunt a giant 30-foot tall giant? You know he doesn't believe her at all.
Yeah.
You know he does. If anything, he's hunting Nancy here because he wants her wealth. There's no way that anybody in this movie believes her, and they keep giving us little reminders of that. At one point when they're looking for it, Nancy sees like a flash of light, and it's like, oh, well, duh, it's lightning.
Stop the car, Harry! There it is!
I don't see a thing.
I saw it flash behind those hills.
All right, I'll turn around.
Stupid dummy. He's such a jerk. Then he immediately abandons her in the desert when they do find it, when they're like, oh, this is... He immediately runs away because he's the biggest dick in the universe. I hate him. I hate Harry.
And to be clear, he was taking her out there to kill her. He had a gun on him because he was taking her out there to blow her brains out and take all of her money. And so he found an easier way, which is just abandoning her with a giant.
Yep. Yeah.
The giant, by the way, Michael Ross, the actor playing the giant, also the same guy who played the bartender in Tony's bar, but just with his head shaved.
Love it. That's great.
We get to see him quite a bit later in the film, and his outfit is absurd. It's like sort of medieval with like a bull on the back who's like huffing, like you can see the snort coming out of the bull's nose. And I was like, what is he wearing? Like, who in the costuming department decided that was a good idea?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Like,
I like all the time we spend on the interiors of Tony's also, by the way, because one of my favorite aspects of those 1950s movies is it's sort of like the age of the rise of rock and roll, and it's a bunch of kids hanging out in the soda shop and, putting a nickel in the jukebox and dancing around all silly. And like, I just think of like movies from the 50s, like Daddy-O and the Beatniks, where it's like 75% of the movie is just kids in a malt shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, one of the most famous scenes from this movie is when the floozy Honey is dancing. That's like one of the most famous scenes from this movie that people iconically talk about. Because, of course, anytime that Harry has a moment alone, he's running off to Tony's bar so that he can go dance with his hottie.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Which also I'm a little confused about because, again, Nancy's gorgeous, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What are you doing, dude? Like, she's gorgeous and she's rich, you know? Like,
yeah. I don't understand. I mean, so what if she's a drunk? Like, just like, I don't know.
Yeah, he drove her to her. He drove her to it, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's his fault. This is all his fault. Everything that happens in this movie is his dang fault.
Absolutely. I mean, maybe the feminist like subtext was a little bit more built in than we're giving it credit for, because this guy really does suck. Like, he's really the movie in no way attempts to justify any of his behavior. It's just kind of like, it's in the vein of like trashy pulp novels of the time, right? Of just like this philandering do-gooder loser husband who's like taking advantage of his wife and this scheming.
I think it is, but I also feel like because it was the 1950s, they didn't really know how they felt about it. Like, it's like, now she finally has her Harry. Like, it would be better if it was just like, oh, she squashed Harry, and now she's gonna stick up for herself, and she's gonna find a guy to treat her well as a 50-foot giant. But unfortunately, it's like, no, it was just this change that had to happen to her, and she had to kill Honey.
Yeah.
And enact this act of revenge, this attack, in order to have Harry. And again, I'm still kind of dwelling a little bit on the way the movies are titled. Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, not really an attack. When you think of some of the other gender swapped versions of this, The Amazing Colossal Man, not Attack of the Amazing Colossal Man.
Yeah.
War of the Colossal Beast, which is another what's it called? Amazing Colossal Man movie. Not implying necessarily that he's waging war on anyone, but that there will be some friction between him and another giant creature of some kind. But yeah, it's really kind of like, it really exposes just how frightened people were of the thought of a woman with agency at the time.
I really was hoping for more of an attack, because like the whole town is like super shitty to her in various reasons. So I was hoping for kind of a Carrie style catharsis at the end of just like,
she's shaking the power lines, like drop the power lines onto Tony's bar and have the place like go up.
Yeah, go on a rampage.
She is on a mission. She is walking so purposefully during all of those shots. First, she goes to the hotel to try to find them. And when she can't find them there, I mean, you can literally see her. I know it's just the same shot of her walking with different backgrounds every single time.
Yeah.
But you can tell that she is only trying to find Harry. That is her only purpose. And Jarrod, you just touched on something incredibly important, which is that the final line of this movie is, she finally got Harry all to herself.
She finally got Harry all to herself.
Right. So we are not ending on a feminist message, despite the fact that the whole movie was like, women power. Yeah, let's not treat women like shit anymore. And then we kind of treated women like shit again.
We couch it as like a tragic romance instead of like a revenge thriller.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It would have been really great if we would have gotten like a scene where she becomes like the lard lad donut guy, and she just walks down the street smashing buildings and kicking dogs into the air.
And then everybody's singing, just don't look, just don't look.
Just don't look, just don't look.
It's perfect. I love
That's
it.
what makes her go away, finally.
Guarantee void in Tennessee.
You know, it's also interesting, actually, when she is going on this very purposeful attack looking for Harry. You're right. I would have loved to see her go on a rampage. In addition to that, though, it's bizarre because for some reason, all the townspeople are running in the direction that she's walking. Did you guys notice that? I was like, why are they not running away from, like, she clearly was going to something specific and she was not attacking anybody. So why run towards where she's going?
Well, they were emulating Charlize Theron in Prometheus, I think. They were just trying to, run in as straight a line as humanly possible. Yeah.
It was very prophetic of them.
Yes. I don't know how they knew.
Great.
Yeah.
Absolutely great. I guess another good point relating to the idea of how feminist this movie is that we do get these two doctors who are trying to care for Nancy, and they're kind of bouncing different ideas off of each other about what they can do, and they have a very icky feeling scene to me where they're basically just saying that women suck.
When women reach the age of maturity, Mother Nature sometimes overworks their frustration to a point of irrationalism.
Did that scene stand out for you guys? I'm wondering if that's something that I kind of felt more drawn to because I'm a woman.
I would have never made this connection before, but having, again, like I mentioned, watched this right after watching The Howling, this is clearly an influence. Like, this movie is clearly an influence on the themes of The Howling. Like, it makes perfect sense. Joe Dante would have been the prime age to have grown up with this movie. And had this been, you know, something that was clearly influential. But yeah, the same thing. It's like there's this nefarious doctor. All the men townspeople kind of get together to gaslight this woman, and it's weird, the parallels between it. I never in a million years had I not watched that movie yesterday noticed all of the similarities in theme. It has to have been a pretty big influence.
Well, that's doing a thing that I love it when a lot of monster movies do, especially if you're making like a giant blank movie, right? You need to kind of sell the audience on why this thing is the ultimate killer. You know, you have to have one monologue from a scientist where he's like, oh, well, what happens if this rabbit gets too large? Well, his feet can kick through an entire house or something. You know, you need to establish the stakes in what they do. And I feel like that scene is very clumsily trying to set up, okay, this is why a woman is the ultimate threat. Like, this is why she is the apex predator if we let her get too big. Like, and so it comes across as very condescending and very it's very condescending at one point. So like one of the doctors at one point is like, oh, you know, maybe I shouldn't have encouraged Nancy to stay in this shitty relationship. Like maybe she wouldn't be in such a bad place if she had just gotten out of this relationship. And then the second doctor is like, yeah, man, when women get old, they get crazy. And I was like, what? Also, what? Like, I was also
crazy.
Men get crazy when they get old too. Let's not discriminate here, okay?
He does go in to say that. He's like, it's just like how we go a little crazy and we want 20-year-olds.
Like the middle-aged man of our age who finds himself looking longingly at a girl in her early 20s.
I was like, fuck you,
dude. Good save, man.
You're describing the same thing, but with no awareness whatsoever of what you're describing.
Women do indeed be shopping.
They sure
what they were saying.
We're just buying sports cars. We're normal. Yeah.
Oh, it's so silly. It's so silly. Let's talk a little bit more about the reveals and the special effects having to do with the giants.
Yes.
So some of these were really effective for me. We've already hit on a couple of different moments. Would each of you share with me a little bit about kind of your initial impressions of the effects?
I was a little, I don't really know what I was expecting. I think because a lot of the movies of this era that I've like actively sought out or that like really stand out in my memory are like the ones that have sort of stood the test of time. It's like Them or
Great
The
movie.
Day the Earth Stood Still or like things like that where you're kind of looking at it as like, oh wow, like I guess I can see how they pulled this off, but like it's really impressive, like the craft here, you know? And I think I was assuming this was going to be kind of on that level where I'm like, oh yeah, look, I mean, it's rudimentary, but like, oh, I don't know how they did that. That's pretty cool. These are much cheaper looking effects than I was expecting. Much cheaper looking. Like we already called out the big plaster hand. We talked about the baby doll Harry at the end. Like, and there's just a lot of kind of like, what do you call it? The kind of like optic overlay or what? I'm forgetting the exact term.
Force perspective.
No, it's just like where
she's like masked.
Yeah, she's kind of like
yeah.
masked over, like her parts are like see through as she's clearly like walking over an environment. You know, like the seams are like really visible. Which again, not that I'm advocating for a remake for this necessarily, but like you can see why this is a fun challenge for a filmmaker who's like kind of technically minded. You could see how this would be a fun thing to try and execute with maybe a little more skill. But like the little rampage that she goes on at the very end is pretty iconic, if only for her bed linen bikini look, somehow perfectly coiffed hair. Like she just like grew up, like she just got really big and just did her hair somehow perfectly. She must have literally had a team crawling around in her head with rakes or something, but she looks fantastic. And she's just like stomping through the town. Like she doesn't really get to talk when she turns giant, right? Am I misremembering that? Like she just kind of becomes like a monster.
She kind of like yells Harry. She does talk a little bit. She has like a couple of little sentences, but it's very jarbled. It's kind of like a little echoey, and it's mostly just her yelling Harry.
Yeah.
Harry! Harry! It's your wife. She's running the town looking for you.
Not to be confused with a bunch of women screaming Gary as in Giant Spider Invasion.
Oh yeah.
Or not Giant Spider Invasion, Horrors of Spider Island. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, everyone.
How
Put down
dare
your
you.
angry tweets.
How
I
dare
corrected
you.
myself. I meant, yes, Horrors of Spider Island, which is the black and white one. The Giant Spider Invasion is a Bill Rebane, like Wisconsin dirtbag redneck horror movie. Different genre altogether.
And that's not the Shatner one, is it? That's Kingdom of the Spiders.
Kingdom of the Spiders.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I get those confused.
See, we know this stuff.
We know
Too many spiders, too many giants.
Too many, yeah.
I guess eight-legged freaks had both.
So as did Arachnophobia, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true.
They weren't that giant, but like, we had a couple. I found it weird that like most this is a tangent, but like I was realizing recently, most giant spider movies go for laughs rather than scares. And I'm curious why, because arachnophobia is an extremely common phobia. The only one I've seen that like actually scared me was a recent one that Jarrod recommended, like a French film called Infested, which actually I found that very scary and intense. Yeah, because that kind of plays like The Raid or Evil Dead Rise or something, but with spiders.
But they're not giant. I mean, though they vary in size. They're big ones when they're going through the halls of the apartment complex and stuff.
Yeah,
but they start small. I can't help. But you were saying how this, like you were saying, too many spiders, too many giants. One of my favorite jokes of all time is the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt musical, Spider-Man 2, Too Many Spider-Men.
I say it every single time. That's what I still refer to as the Spider-Verse movies as, even though I love those movies, but the third subtitle should be Spider-Man, Too Many Spider-Men.
That's really funny. All right, Jarrod, tell me a little bit about what were some of your favorite effects? What were some of your least favorite effects?
I think Steve sort of already hit on what I think were the least effective of the special effects. I mean, to me, it was it's firing kind of on all cylinders for exactly what you want in this kind of movie, when it's just Allison Hayes with miniatures.
Yeah.
Like that's what you want. The Godzilla school of rampaging.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah, like it's like just, normal sized her ripping a small building apart. Like that's what I like. That's what I wanted. Frankly, from what I remember, I mean, 1 hour and 6 minutes. Yeah, it's a tight, short movie. Could have benefited from 5 to 7 more minutes of rampaging. I would have enjoyed that. So that's kind of my favorite part. And so I was really reveling in the last few minutes, the last maybe 10 minutes of the movie. Is really where I feel like it's the most effective when we're talking about the special effects. A lot of the other stuff is chintzy and cheap, and not that that's not chintzy and cheap, but it's just it's what I think of when I think of this kind of giant creature rampaging. So that's what I want.
Especially when you think about, like, I agree with you, like a little bit more time should have been spent on the rampaging part, because the way people used to watch movies back in the 50s is like you would have the B movie, right? That comes on first, and then you have like the actual picture, right? And people basically, they just leave movies running all day long, and you come in and you leave. Like it was not uncommon to just kind of like step in the middle of one movie and like let it ride out, So if you're seeing Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, you're probably seeing it for the attack. You're seeing it for the last couple of minutes of the movie. So it would have gotten a few more butts in the seats, I think, if they'd stretched that out.
I don't know that I entirely agree with that. I would say that in the 50s, a big part of watching the scary movies was watching people screaming.
Mhm,
Like, I think
mhm.
that was a big part of the fear. And there was an awful lot of people screaming in this movie. And so I think that it did kind of keep me on the edge of my seat. Would I have liked more attack portion of the movie? Absolutely. Who wouldn't? But I kind of liked that a lot of what we got was like the hints at things. Two of my favorite effects, actually, one probably the best looking effect overall for me was when the 30-foot alien giant reaches his hand down for the car. I thought
I
that
do like that.
looked extremely real. I thought that there was something about it that I completely believed the size of it. I completely believe, again, it wasn't that plaster hand. So
No.
it felt very, very real, especially in comparison to some of the other stuff that we were looking at. And I enjoyed that because, again, it gave me kind of the realism of, okay, no, I'm actually in this universe right now.
Yeah.
The other effect that I really liked was, it's not even really an effect. I just was giggling at it a whole bunch. At one point we go into the spaceship, and inside the spaceship is actually quite beautiful. It's smoky in there. We have like light coming out of grates. There's all these crystal balls. And my favorite moment, effect sort of thing that happened in there was at one point, the cop is walking behind the crystal balls, and so his face gets all distorted. And
That was good, yeah.
It kind of looked like Butthead from Society. Like, that was all I could imagine. Like, 'cause of how it was stretched out. And so I was just like giggling hysterically at it. But again, that's like one of those very little effects that feels really, really sufficient for a movie like this. It felt scary and it felt like I'm in a different world, and it worked for me.
Yeah. I can see that. I absolutely agree with that. I think that part was cool. And like, yeah, just more giants, more weird aliens, more stuff like that. Like, it's great that we have this kind of like Sunrise, A Tale of Two Lovers playing out, behind the scenes, except, the no redemption arc, just the first half of the movie. But like, yeah, it's that stuff is all like really fun and trashy, but it does eat up a lot of the real estate when I want to see her actually literally eating some real estate. I want her to see her pick up a building and eat it, and spit,
that's my number one complaint
to people.
My number one complaint is we needed more Nancy Archer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we needed more of her. Like, she was the more interesting character. Like, her story was more interesting, and I just wanted more of a revenge arc. I just wanted to see her like really stomp on like the sheriff's office and all these like dickheads who were taking bribes. Even the little comic relief sheriff assistant guy was taking bribes. That guy sucks.
Charlie. Dang
Fucking
Charlie.
He thinks he can dance his way out of that. I'm like, no way. He
I
does
was
have
just
moves.
saying, arrivederci.
He has some sick moves. I'm going to give it to him. He has some sick moves.
He was better than Harry. Who is the character in another movie or TV show that is as vile as Harry?
Oh, good question. Oh, Paul Reiser in Aliens.
Oh, there you go.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, that's a sniveling one. Yeah.
I'm like, but they get their comeuppance. That was the thing. Is I'm like, that's the character definitely, tries to run away, or like John Travolta and Nancy Allen and Carrie.
It's a smaller part, but like Anthony Heald as the warden in Silence of the Lambs. That guy just makes my skin crawl. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Chilton.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just a little shithead. Yeah, who and like he doesn't get much screen time, but like you really do love the implication at the end of that movie that he's gonna get it. So that's how you're effective in that role.
So talking about getting the comeuppance, I don't know that I fully believe that Harry does get his comeuppance in this movie, because after she picks up Harry, she's like, she brings him over and she's close to the power lines again. And the cops are shooting at her, which results in her getting shocked, and she falls over, and then Harry is dead. But did he get electrocuted? Did he get shot by the cops? Did he? I really don't understand his demise.
I wasn't sure if he got like choked out by her or anything.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like that seems like the way it should have been. It's just that she like crushes him. But yeah, you do want a scene of him like pleading for his life or something, like in her palm, and like trying to do like whatever slimy charm it was that like got him in with her in the first place. You know, you want to see him making that effort, her being slightly tempted, and then going, you know, just squishing him.
Yeah.
I know we're like rewriting a 60-year-old movie on the fly here, but you know, I'm just saying,
Listen,
Tim Burton,
somebody-
if you're watching this, like we're cheaper than Gillian Flynn.
Somebody's
equally
got to
good.
do it. Somebody's
Yeah.
got to do it. Somebody's got to do it.
Attack of the 50-foot Gone Girl. There you go.
There it is. There. It actually, like, honestly, like, yeah. Come to think of it, I mean, like, you could see the subplots of like murderous husbands and wives going on in here too. That means I think that's probably going to keep some of it. Yeah.
That works so absurdly well. I love that idea.
It's kind of a really good fit if you think about it. Yeah.
It really is. All right. Well, do either of you have any final thoughts before we'll do some ratings for this movie? But I'd love to hear any final thoughts before we get into that.
I think I've blabbed enough.
Yeah, I agree. Not that you blabbed enough. I agree. I feel like I've said enough on the subject also, but you as well.
Yeah, you know.
Can it? I love the fact that movies like this exist.
Mhm.
Like, I'm always interested in like a bizarre cultural footnote, you know, like it's always, you know, way more interesting. I mean, of movies from the 50s. The 50s is a weird Hollywood decade because I tend to generally really love the 40s. I think the 40s is probably, outside of the 70s, might be my favorite non-horror genre decade of filmmaking. And the 50s was a weird reaction to that, where it was like we had that 40s post-war kind of malaise. We had a lot of RKO Studios, dark noirs and stuff like that. And then in the 50s, then to compete with television, there was this concerted effort to like make everything more blockbuster, make everything more family friendly. And you get a lot of Westerns, a lot of musicals, a lot of things that are kind of more populist entertainment. The most interesting thing, in my opinion, about the 50s is when you get to the late 50s and you get into like the atomic age, and you get these kind of monster movies, which I think are amazing. But you know, if you're talking about movies from like 1958 or sometime around then, like, I don't want to watch like Ben-Hur. I want to watch Attack of the 50-Foot Woman.
Yeah, you could watch this movie 4 times before you will finish Ben-Hur.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to watch the 10 Commandments. I want to watch them, and I want to watch The Amazing Colossal Man and Deadly Mantis.
Yeah,
Earth versus the Spider, another spider movie we didn't mention.
More spiders.
So I think that leads us perfectly into rating this movie. So on my channel, I rate movies out of 7 thumbs up. So I would love to know what both of you would rate this movie out of 7 thumbs up.
Okay. Ooh, 7. I have to do some math on
I know,
this
yeah.
one.
Do you get ready to do math? It's really nonsense is what it is.
Yeah, I love it. No, I love it, to be clear. I'm going to go 4 out of 7 thumbs up on Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. Yeah, it's more that I love like kind of like what Jarrod was saying, more that I love the vibe, that I love the existence of this movie, and that I love it as a cultural artifact more than I love it as like a perfectly tight narrative or a perfectly well-constructed film. They stumbled on some stuff here. Like, I don't know how intentional it is. If it is intentional, it's pretty cool. If it's not intentional, it's pretty cool that we can still kind of suss that out from this movie, and that we can explore some of those themes and kind of retake it in that way. So I think it's really cool. It was really fun. I'm glad I got to finally have a good excuse to get around to it.
Yeah. What about you, Jarrod?
Well, so I'm pretty close in agreement, but I will say that you can see the influence of this movie in so many different places. So even though, again, the actual film itself is lacking in certain areas, I'm going to give it 5 thumbs up out of 7, because I think there's a lot of fun stuff here, and I think this movie is introducing, like Steve said, whether intentionally or not, some themes that directors that I really like will explore even further. And I think that's all in thanks to this movie primarily. So it got nudged up, 1 thumb rating from me. I would have probably, on content alone, maybe 4, but I'm pushing it up to 5.
Yeah. All right.
I would totally agree with Jarrod on this one. I would give this 5 out of 7 thumbs up. To me, this is a movie that, although it is not perfect, although it is not perfectly made, it is a huge part of our history in the love of film. And in addition to that, it really truly does dive into some extremely important topics that we hadn't really talked a lot about in film history before this, and now we do. And that is really, really interesting. This movie explores the idea of feminism in totally unique ways that don't feel like nowadays when we talk about feminism in movies. I think even one of you was mentioning when we were doing Cam Girl, like the idea that, you know, you don't usually see cat fights anymore. Nowadays, like feminism feels almost more forced. This is just talking about a woman or a person who is having a rough time, and so we empathize with her. And does it matter that she's a woman? Yes, sort of, but also anybody who's in a shitty relationship we empathize with. And this movie does such a good job with that I might even push it up to 6 thumbs up. I like the 50s sci-fi very, very much, and this is a classic.
Hey, it's your show. You do what you want.
Wonderful. I'm gonna give it so many thumbs.
Add more thumbs.
It gets a million thumbs. I think if the final line hadn't been "she finally got Harry all to herself," I might have gotten even higher than that. But that really wasn't my favorite. My favorite. Well, I can't say thank you guys enough for coming and joining me to talk about this movie. I would love it if you guys would tell everybody a little bit more about where they can find you.
Absolutely. You can find us at Puppet Masters Castle Freaks on all of our socials. We're everywhere you get your podcasts. I'm doing a poor job of this. We are the we're a podcast all about Charles Band, basically, you know. So his works and the films that he kind of influenced. So we're talking a lot about Full Moon. We're talking a lot about Empire, Torchlight, Moonbeam, all the different like little eras of the studio. We're getting to watch through a couple of classics, a couple of real chores, a couple of bizarre little finds that kind of never would have been on our radar otherwise. And we're getting to talk with some amazing luminaries in the horror community, including Kaylee here, who came on a show about Giantess Battle Attack and Attack of the 50-Foot Cam Girl.
And you'll be doing Ghoulies 4 very soon, I'm sure, right?
Oh, not only are we doing it, but we're doing it soon. That sounds like a threat.
It is. The Ghoulies are currently filling out their FAFSA forms, but you know, soon they will arrive and we can cover them, their collegiate career in full.
I really appreciate so much you guys again coming and taking the time to talk with me. It's absolutely a pleasure to discuss movies with you because you're both so knowledgeable. Please, everybody go and check out Puppet Masters Castle Freaks. All of the information will be linked down below. And thank you guys again, and thank you guys all for watching.